I have heard it said that a large percentage of young people today are attracted to the idea of socialism. And it's pretty obvious that many institutes of higher learning are promoting the wonders of a socialist society while at the same time lecturing against the evils of free market and capitalism. My goal here today is to offer a non-combative comparison of the two systems using just a simple little metaphor. So let's pretend that this summer your neighbor plants a tomato garden. Your neighbor prepares a corner of his yard, he turns the soil, he puts down fertilizer and plants a number of tomato seedlings. He watches over the growth of the plants on nearly a daily basis and he sees to it that they're watered regularly. He buys tall stakes, drives them into the ground, and ties off the tomato plants as they grow to support the weight of the tomatoes when they appear. He applies more fertilizer, he protects the growing plants from insects and parasites, and by the middle of the summer, his hard work is rewarded. The plants begin to produce the fruit, and he goes out to his garden every day and picks the ripe tomatoes. He waters the soil and tends to the garden as needed. And if he's like my neighbor who has vegetable gardens, it's likely that he will take delight in sharing his abundance by offering you a few fresh tomatoes for your table. Okay, let's view this illustration like a capitalist. Perhaps you will make plans to grow your own tomato garden next year. You see, free market tells us that if you do what your neighbor did, you can have what your neighbor has. You can produce your own tomato garden and your own abundant supply of tomatoes. On the other hand, let's view this like a socialist might see it. You will point out that your neighbor is unfair. He has far more tomatoes than he can ever consume himself, and you demand that he redistribute the wealth and share that crop equally with all the families in the neighborhood. But now your socialist mind begins to question the kind of fertilizer that your neighbor has used. Is it safe for humans to eat these tomatoes? Did this amateur know what he was doing? Somebody needs to check on this. So you bring in an environmentalist to study the situation and give your neighbor proper instructions on exactly how he should tend the garden. Of course, it's only fair that that expert should get his share of the crop as well. Now you begin to wonder, are there other things that this untrained dolt is doing wrong? Does he water the plants enough, or does he perhaps overwater them? What can he do better to prevent insects and other pests from damaging the crop? So you bring in yet another expert to study the situation and to tell your neighbor exactly how to better tend for the plants. Of course, that expert gets his share of the tomatoes as well. But now you begin to take notice of just exactly how observant and smart you are, and what a natural leader you are. Your selfish, uninformed neighbor amounts to little more than a farm laborer, and he did not take into consideration all of the things that he should have without your leadership. You need recognition for your superiority, and you should be entitled to more than just the trivial number of tomatoes that he has given you in the past. Okay, enough. Can you see the difference here? With the capitalist solution, we've created yet another productive citizen and yet more tomatoes. But the socialist system, on the other hand, has not produced any extra tomatoes at all. But it has created a bureaucracy and an elite leader. Socialism teaches if you want what your neighbor has, that you're entitled to it. The free market suggests that if you want what your neighbor has, just do what your neighbor did. That, my friends, is the difference of how free enterprise evolves and how socialism evolves. Capitalism and free market can be ugly and fiercely competitive. Yes, they can. Yet they have created more prosperity for more people than any other form of government in the history of mankind. Socialism, on the other hand, has created, well, you tell me. I don't see where socialism has ever created anything. Socialism is a parasitic institution. Socialism needs to have a host in place that it can feed upon. Socialism grows from the seeds of envy, sloth, and pride. And as you can see from where today's young socialists are going, These seeds sprout into anger, rage, fear, discontent, and conflict. Free market and capitalism, on the other hand, have their roots in the simplicity of the barter system. Free market and capitalism have their flaws, but I challenge you, tell me about any other form of market or government that has provided so much abundance for so many people. Feel free to email me. If you agree, that's great, and if you disagree, I'd like to hear from you as well. But right now I have to go. I'm going to go help my neighbor pack. You see, the collective has determined that my neighbor's tomato garden is just too important to belong to just one person. So the community has taken ownership of my neighbor's property via eminent domain. And my neighbor's going to be moved into public housing where he is going to be allowed 2 tomatoes each week. Thanks again for watching. Hope to see you again soon.